Don't ever tell a child to forget what their bones remember. She told the truth when she was 16, about a night, about a uniform, about the snap in her arm that echoed louder than any scream. But no one believed her, not the school, not the police, not her own aunt, because there was no proof. Until 40 years later, a photo, black and white, faded at the edges, showed up in the back pages of a local newspaper and changed everything. Before we begin, let me ask how you are. Has your back been holding up? Your memory still sharp as ever? Have your grandkids learned to slow down when you say, wait? Are you resting more these days, or still chasing everybody else's peace instead of your own? I ask because this story is about remembering, not the kind that fades with age, the kind that sits in your bones and waits to be believed. Her name was Naomi Clarke, and in 1983, she was 16 years old and too brave for her own good. She had grown up on the east side of Birmingham, Alabama, lived with her auntie, a Sunday school teacher who believed in Jesus, discipline, and never speaking ill of the police. Naomi was quiet, observant, the kind of girl who read under streetlights when the power went out and asked too many questions in civics class. The trouble started one warm night in June. She had just left the corner store, bag of cornbread mix and $1 candy in hand, when the patrol car pulled up. 2 officers, white, one old, one young. They said she looked like someone they were searching for. She said she wasn't. They asked for ID. She said she was 16. They said that's old enough to lie. She never saw the swing coming, just felt the arm twist, the population, the gravel in her cheek, the scream that got swallowed by the sound of tires and silence. They left her there, bleeding, crying, broken. She walked home, cradling her right arm like a wounded bird. Her aunt didn't believe her. "What did you say to them?" she asked. "You must have talked back." At the clinic, the nurse wrote down, "Fell off a bike." Naomi said nothing, because no one wanted the truth. Not from her. Naomi never fully healed. The bone mended, yes, the doctor said so, but her right arm always ached in the cold, and she couldn't lift it above her shoulder without a tug of pain reminding her. This didn't happen the way they said it did. She graduated high school, quietly, no celebration. Just a church dress 2 sizes too big and a limp bouquet from her aunt. She didn't go to prom. Couldn't wear a sleeveless gown with a crooked scar like that. She got a job at a diner, started nights then mornings, poured coffee with her left hand, smiled when customers said, "You're too pretty to look so sad." She never answered. Some stories don't get told in diners. Some truths don't sit well next to pancakes. Years passed. She moved out, rented a small 1-bedroom off Highway 11, read books, learned how to sleep on her left side, avoided local cops like potholes. And when she finally married James, a mechanic who hummed Motown in his sleep, she never told him the full story, only that her arm had been hurt once. "Bike accident," she said. He kissed the scar and never asked again. She had one child, Kyla, fierce and loud from the crib. When Kyla turned 16, Naomi sat her down. "Be careful," she said. "I'm always careful," Kyla replied. Naomi opened her mouth to say more, to say you don't understand what they can do, but the words got tangled in 40 different memories and never made it out. So she just nodded and carried the silence one more day. But silence gets heavy, especially when the world keeps shouting over it. And Naomi started to notice something changing, more people filming, marching, saying names out loud that had once only lived in grief. One night, Kyla came home with fire in her voice. "They pushed my friend to the ground, Ma. She wasn't even resisting." Naomi flinched. Kyla looked at her. "You don't get it." Naomi stared back. "I do. But let me ask you something. What happens when the pain you buried in your bones lives on in your child's rage? When silence becomes the thing they no longer allow you to hold?" It was Kyla who found it. She'd started volunteering at the public library, helping scan old newspapers into the town's digital archive. Most of it was mundane: lost dog notices, high school football scores, church potlucks, until she saw a headline from 1983. Disturbance near East Side Market, no arrests made. The article was short, vague, said something about a young person resisting a routine inquiry, but it was the photo that made her stop breathing. A grainy black and white image. 2 officers standing beside a patrol car, and a girl, slumped on the curb, one arm twisted, face turned away. Kyla clicked enhance. Her fingers shook. She zoomed in. The girl was wearing a white tank top and corduroy pants. Her arm looked wrong, angled sharply, not naturally. Her other hand gripped a small paper bag. Cornbread mix. She printed it, brought it home. "Ma," she said, dropping the paper on the kitchen table. "Is this you?" Naomi stared. The air left the room. She didn't reach for the photo, just looked at it like it might reach back. "Yes," she said. Then softer, "That's me." Kyla sat down. "You said it was a bike." Naomi nodded. "Because no one believed me when I told the truth." That night, they didn't eat dinner. They just talked. Naomi told her everything, every ache, every denial, every adult who asked, "What did you do to deserve it?" She cried once. Only once. Kyla listened, fists clenched. "They always say we lie," she said, "but you weren't lying." "No, baby," Naomi replied. "I was just invisible." Kyla posted the photo, captioned it, "This is my mom." She told the truth in 1983. They said she had no proof. This is the proof. It spread fast. People commented, shared, cried, raged. And someone somewhere saw it who hadn't seen Naomi Clarke in decades. Let me ask you now, what happens when the proof you never thought would surface finally shows its face? Does the world apologize? Or does it just look away and pretend it never doubted you? Naomi didn't sleep the night the post went viral. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Friends she hadn't spoken to in decades called. Strangers messaged her daughter. News outlets sent emails. Some offered interviews. Others asked for comment. Even the local newspaper, the same one that printed the original photo, reached out. "We'd like to run a follow-up," they wrote. "On your side of the story this time." Naomi stared at the message, then deleted it. The mayor issued a statement the next day. "We are aware of the 1983 photo involving Ms. Naomi Clarke. We deeply regret any pain caused, and we are reviewing police conduct protocols from that time." No apology, just regret. And policy reviews that came 40 years too late. Then came the police department, a press conference, suits at a podium. "We have located records from the evening in question. No formal complaint was filed. We are, however, committed to transparency." Naomi watched it on TV, arms crossed. "No complaint was filed," she whispered, "because I was 16 and broken and alone." But Kyla wouldn't let it fade. She started a petition. Recognize Naomi Clarke's assault. Admit the failure. Thousands signed. The local council asked Naomi to speak. She said no. They asked again. She said no. It wasn't fear, it was fury. You don't get to ignore someone for 40 years and then give them a microphone like it makes up for it, she told Kyla. Kyla nodded, but then said, "You don't have to do it for them. Do it for every girl like you who's still being told she imagined it." Naomi thought about that a long time. She sat on her porch, listened to wind, held the old photo in her lap, ran her fingers across the grainy image, and remembered the pain, the gravel, the blood, the silence. Then she stood up, walked inside, and said, "If I'm going to speak, I'll do it my way." Let me ask you, heart to heart, what does justice mean when it arrives after the pain has already shaped who you are? Is being heard finally enough? Or is it just another chapter in a story that should have ended in 1983? Naomi agreed to speak, but not at a podium with the seal behind her, not in front of city council cameras. She chose a church basement, the same one she had hidden in as a girl after the beating. The same folding chairs, same dusty cross on the back wall. She invited no one official, just neighbors, women, girls, teachers, mothers, fathers, strangers who'd seen her photo and said, "That could have been my child." She didn't wear makeup, didn't write a speech. She stood in front of them, worn, unshaken, and said, "They told me I had no proof, but the pain was proof. The limp, the sleepless nights, the way I flinched every time I heard tires screech. I lived with proof for 40 years. You just didn't want to see it." The room held its breath. Some cried. Some didn't move at all, because some truths make your body remember too much. The next day, someone spray-painted "liar" on her mailbox. Kyla wanted to call the news. Naomi told her not to. "They're not scared I lied. They're scared I finally got believed." But Naomi kept speaking. She was invited to speak at a local high school, then a college, then a women's shelter, and with each place, her story changed slightly, not because the facts changed, but because she finally had the freedom to shape it. She started saying names of teachers who ignored her bruises, of police who laughed when she said, "They broke my arm," of the nurse who wrote "bike accident" instead of asking twice. Then a letter arrived, official seal, signed by the police chief. It read, "We recognize the harm done to Ms. Naomi Clarke. While we cannot change the past, we extend a formal apology on behalf of the Birmingham Police Department." Naomi didn't cry. She folded the letter, placed it in her Bible, beside the photo, then went out to water her garden. But I ask you this, if the people who once doubted you finally admit they were wrong, do you thank them? Or do you tell them they're 40 years too late? What would you say? The apology was printed in the newspaper, posted on the city website, and read aloud at a community meeting. Some called it historic, others called it too little, too late. Naomi called it what it was, acknowledgement, not amends. But something else happened. The week after the apology, Naomi received a letter, handwritten, careful. "I was there that night," it read. "I was working in the pharmacy across the street. I saw what they did. I never said a word. I'm sorry." Then another. "I remember your name from the clinic records. I'm ashamed I didn't ask questions." Then more. Women, men, people who had once stayed silent, people who had once doubted, and people who, like Naomi, had their own stories, never told, never believed. Kyla began documenting them. She set up a small blog, simple, black background, white text. "We believe you." Stories poured in. A girl in Georgia, 1979. A boy in Missouri, 1985. A woman in Louisiana, 1992. Each with the same thread. They said I had no proof. But the pain was real, the silence was loud, and I never forgot. Naomi read every post. She answered every email, sometimes with a prayer, sometimes with just one line, "I see you." The blog caught fire. Local media picked it up, then regional. Soon the phrase "I see you" became a quiet chant at rallies, painted on murals, whispered in courtrooms. One day, Naomi received a message request. It was from a name she hadn't heard in 4 decades. Officer D.R. Halstead, one of the men from that night. The message was only 3 lines long. "I was the younger one. I remember everything. I'm ready to speak, if you'll let me. Let me ask you something. If the person who hurt you wanted to confess, not in secret, but publicly, would you allow it? Or would you say, you had your chance and I had to survive without you?" They met at a church office, neutral ground, no press, no crowd. Just Naomi, Kyla, and the man from the photograph. Now gray-haired, slightly hunched, holding a folded cap in his hands. He didn't speak first. Naomi did. "You remember what you did?" He nodded slow. "I do." "Say it." His eyes filled with something, not quite shame, not quite courage. "I broke your arm. I shoved you into the gravel. I lied in the report. I called you aggressive. I was 19. They told me to follow the lead. I never thought you'd survive it." Naomi's jaw clenched. "I didn't survive it. I carried it." He asked if he could sit. She didn't answer. He sat anyway. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "Good," Naomi replied, "because this isn't about you." He nodded. "I want to testify," he said, "to sign a statement, let people know it was real." Naomi leaned forward. "You had 40 years. Why now?" He swallowed. "Because when I saw your photo in the paper, I didn't see a girl I hurt. I saw a grandmother, a mother, and I knew that pain never left your eyes." She studied him, long, then said, "You'll give your statement. You'll speak at the hearing. You'll name names. And when it's done, you'll sit down and listen to the people you hurt." He agreed, not out of nobility, but because there was nothing left to hide behind. A week later, Naomi stood beside him at a community truth forum. She told her story calmly. He told his shakily, and when it was over, she didn't hug him. She didn't smile. She just looked at him and said, "You're not here to be redeemed. You're here to prove we were right. But let me ask you this, if your pain became someone else's reckoning, would you let it? Would you use your survival to demand they finally speak? Or would you let silence bury them too, the way they once tried to bury you?" Naomi's name was now everywhere. City council meetings, education panels, training modules for new police recruits. Her face, once hidden in a blurry newspaper photo, now appeared in slideshows and town hall posters under the words, "Truth told, truth believed." But not everyone applauded. Anonymous letters arrived at her home. One read, "You should have stayed quiet." Another, "Dragging the city down for something no one can change." A neighbor she'd known for 30 years stopped speaking to her. A deacon at her church resigned when she was invited to speak from the pulpit. Even some black leaders whispered, "She's stirring things too far." But Naomi? She kept walking, not for the apology, not for the attention, but for the 16-year-old girl who still lived inside her bones. The one with the broken arm, lying in the gravel, whispering, "Don't forget me." The mayor requested a meeting. Behind closed doors, he offered her a Community Peace Award and asked if she would consider softening some of the language in her public speaking. Naomi smiled. "Which word should I soften, broken or lied?" He didn't answer. She stood, thanked him, and walked out. Later that night, Kyla looked at her with quiet concern. "Ma, are you tired?" Naomi sipped her tea. "Exhausted." "Do you want to stop?" Naomi thought a long moment. "No," she said. "I want them to stop thinking I ever will." The next morning, she received a package. Inside was a plaque from the Police Training Academy. It read, "Dedicated to Naomi Clarke, because every silence we break is one less truth we bury." She didn't hang it. She placed it beside her Bible, because trophies weren't the point. Telling it was. Believing it was. Surviving it was. But now let me ask you, what do you do when the world finally starts to change? Because you refuse to shut up. Do you rest? Or do you make sure the next woman doesn't have to scream so loud to be heard? It came in a simple white envelope, no return address, no fanfare. Just her name, neatly written, in handwriting she didn't recognize. Naomi opened it slowly, as if the weight of the past could be folded inside. Inside, a single page. No greeting, no sign-off. Just this. "My daughter showed me your photo. I was one of the nurses in the clinic that day. I remember your face. I remember your eyes. I remember not asking questions. And I remember thinking, she probably deserved it." I want you to know I was wrong. I see now what I didn't want to see then, and I carry that." Naomi read it once, then again, and again. She didn't cry, but something in her chest softened just a bit. Not forgiveness, not peace, just release. That evening, she took the letter outside. She sat on the porch as dusk settled. She watched the wind tug at the trees like it was trying to get their attention. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she closed her eyes and breathed in without feeling like something was pressing against her ribs. Kyla joined her, barefoot, coffee in hand. "Who was it from?" "Someone late," Naomi said, "but someone honest." They sat there, two women from two generations, bound by bone, blood, and now by truth. "Let me ask you something as we near the end. What would you do if the person who once looked away finally looked back with eyes that saw you? Would you accept it? Would you send a letter back? Or would you let that quiet moment be enough?" Months passed. The petitions slowed. The blog quieted. The calls came less frequently. Naomi began spending her mornings in the garden, her afternoons reading psalms aloud, and her evenings watching Kyla build her own voice, stronger, louder, fiercer than she ever dared to be. She didn't stop caring. She just let the world move around her. One afternoon, Kyla found her sorting through an old shoebox in the hallway closet. Inside were scraps of her life, her high school ID, the diner name tag, a dried flower from her wedding day, and that photo, the one. She lifted it gently. "Still keeping this?" Naomi nodded. "Not to prove anything." "Then why?" Naomi looked up. "To remember I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't lying." She smiled, tired and proud. "And to remind myself that the truth always outlives the people who try to bury it." That night, Naomi wrote one final entry in a notebook Kyla had given her. She didn't write to the police or to the mayor or even to the girl she once was. She wrote to you, yes, you. If you ever told the truth and were ignored, if you ever screamed and they labeled you dramatic, if you ever flinched and they called you paranoid, keep your story in a photo, in a scar, in a whisper, in a song, in a daughter, because even if the world forgets, you are the proof. And when they finally come looking, you'll be ready. Now let me say this, dear one. Maybe you've been Naomi. Maybe you've been the nurse. Maybe you've held the proof in your palm, afraid no one would believe you. Or maybe you're still waiting to be believed. Wherever you are in that story, don't stay silent. Don't throw away your truth. Don't wait 40 years for someone else to confirm what you already know in your bones. Like, comment, share, subscribe to this space, Black women, where every scar is a sentence, every whisper a witness, and every truth finally has a voice. Because it's your turn to speak.